Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is the Blue Line Blast podcast. Please subscribe to the channel, clicking the notification button below. I'm Jim Biringer alongside Matthew Blittner. We got a jam-packed episode for you today. We got a great special guest. You're going to love him. Can't wait to have him on, talk some hockey. You know him, you love him, and we'll save the surprise for later. Matthew, welcome back.
Great to be back, Jim. That was a heck of an intro for our surprise guest, although quite honestly, it might even be an underwhelming intro.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, this guy, he probably deserves a better intro than I gave him. We'll give it to him later. But we got, like I said, jam-packed episode.
Yeah.
And I think we need to begin with saying what free agency, right?
Oh, Jim, free agency is supposed to start at noon Eastern time on July 1st, barring, like the COVID years and things were different. But other than that type of extenuating circumstance, July 1st, 12 p.m. Eastern time. Jim, we record this show on Monday night, so it was still June 30th when we were talking into each other right here. And, Jim, are there any players left? Everyone signed already.
It feels like everybody signed, right? Let's get it out of the way. We had a great guest on last week with David Dwork, Florida Panthers. We talked about it. It was our 2-for-1 special. We also had Russ going on as well. Check out the links above. We talked about it. Could they keep the band together with the Florida Panthers? He mentioned you take less, you buy into the system. Guess what? All three signed. Bennett, 8 times 8. We had Ekblad taking 8 times 6.1. And I believe Marchand coming in, just over 4, correct, on a 6-year deal?
So Marchand is just over 5 on a 6-year deal. It's 32 mil over 5 years. So my math is not great, which comes as no surprise. I've had many teachers say over the years that my math wasn't great. So I'm just going to punch this into a calculator right now, and we're going to say it's $5.33 million a year.
Yeah, look, those are great deals. Again, let's be honest. I know what the majority of the world's going to say, and that's fine. Let them talk about no state income tax and all that stuff. Bill Zito did great work. Don't discredit the work he's done. He said it after the Stanley Cup final. I want to get all 3 guys signed. I'm getting all 3 guys signed. Yes, Marchand, Ekblad especially could have got more money on the open market because teams like Toronto, Utah were going to go after them. Detroit was probably going to go after Ekblad. But they have a chance to make this thing historic down in Florida. What they're doing, putting a winning team together. They trade for Daniil Tarasov from Columbus, a Bill Zito guy, over the weekend at the draft. This is just great work by Bill Zito.
Jim, it's not just great work. It's GM of the year work. And as much as, look, we love Jim Neal, no disrespect to him, but how is Bill Zito not the GM of the year? And for what he's done right now, and I know it doesn't count because it's not July 1st yet, so the league year doesn't technically start. He should at least get it next year.
Yeah, right?
But I will say this, and you brought up how, everyone argues the no state income tax, and I'm not going to, banter on that. However, there was one unfair advantage that Florida had in re-signing their bid 3. And this is an unconfirmed report. But, Jim, how do you go and buy a DQ franchise in order to sway? There's got to be something against the rules there to go and get a DQ franchise for Brad Marchand.
The rules are out the window. Just look at college athletics, right? NIL, you could do whatever you want now. So apparently you can buy DQs to keep Brad Marchand and the group together. But no, all kidding aside, outstanding work, GM of the year. You and I both are pro wrestling guys. I think we need to acknowledge Bill Zito. I think one's got to go up, or you can call him the best in the world, whatever you want to say. But Florida Panthers putting great work in. He's putting yeoman work in, the grind, putting it together. Again, I put this out earlier. I'm at Jim Biringer. You can put out your handle as well.
At Matthew Blittner.
Yep, exactly. And I said this. We all assumed in 2022 in the summer when Pittsburgh was like, oh, they're going to lose Letang. Oh, they're going to lose Malkin. They signed Letang. They signed Raquel. Oh, Malkin's going to walk. I was on that train. I'm like, oh, he's going to walk. No, they signed all 3 guys. Well, Florida did the same thing. Everybody's like, well, Ekblad signed it. Marchand's got to leave. Does he? He didn't. So here we are, the Florida Panthers doing yeoman's work, getting it done. They're going to be a force to be reckoned with. This thing's going to keep on going for a little bit.
So from what I heard, and again, until someone confirms everything, we don't know complete fact versus fiction. But Brad Marsh and Evan Lee had suitors in the Bruins who were interested in a reunion, but, open wounds still there, according to people. Detroit potentially wanted him, from what I've heard. And obviously Florida wanted him. There may have been one or two more teams who were potentially interested. But, Jim, I think what really got the deal done, and bear in mind, Martian is, 37?
That's correct.
So they gave him a 6-year deal. Now, on the surface, a 6-year deal for a 37-year-old? Jim, what are you doing? But
I don't know what we're doing. I don't know what we're doing.
But it's smart. They kept the cap hit down. So if they were to say, if they were only going to do a 3-year deal, that 5.33 definitely would have been 8.5.
Yes.
Okay. Which they would not have managed.
No.
I mean, they're over the cap now, but in the offseason, you are allowed to be over the cap by 10%. So they do have to ship out some salary. But that was the key. And where Tampa failed last year in trying to get Steven Stamkos to take a longer deal for roughly same total package, but less per year, Brad Marchand took the longer deal with the less per year to stay with the Florida Panthers. And, I mean, Ekblad staying, I think, was definitely the biggest surprise, in my opinion, because he just had so much of an open market there. But again, sticking around 8 years, 6.1. Jim, if Ekblad's getting 6.1, and we'll touch on Evan Bouchard, who of course signed, getting 10.5, and Noah Dobson getting 9.5, and Provorov getting 8.5. I mean, who's the top defenseman left? Garyov?
Vladislav Gavrikov's the last remaining UFA defenseman, and all indications are he's getting $8 million.
No, he's getting more than $8 million. He was getting $8 million before these guys signed their deal.
Yeah, now he could get $9 million.
He's easily getting 9 unless he hold. The only way he doesn't get 9 is if he says, you know what, there's this place I specifically want to go to, and I'm just not going to hold out for top dollar. Which, of course, he could. That's his prerogative. But Jim, the prices, we're seeing them inflate thanks to the rising cap. And the rising cap is, and we'll touch on it later at a later part of the show on the new CBA, but a lot of people were afraid that with the rising cap, we were going to see NBA-style contracts, shorter term, more money per year. That's the NHL players are saying to all the media people, or metaphorically saying to all the media people who were speculating about that, saying, up yours, you don't know what you're talking about, because we're going to take the long-term deals and we're going to take less money per year. So what do any of us know?
No, I mean, the only one would be, again, Evan Bouchard is a short-term deal. We'll see what happens with Connor McDavid. But the Mitch Marner, look, he got the Mikko Rantanen deal out in Vegas with the sign and trade. We heard that was going to happen over the weekend. It finally came to fruition here as we record the day on June 30th, right before the day of free agency. He goes to Vegas. Nick Waugh goes the other way. Vegas also moved out Nick Hague to Nashville. They got Jeremy Lauzon as well as Colton Sissons. But Marner gets 8 times 12. There was a lot of reports he may only go short term, 4 times 12. It's going to be interesting to see because Matthews kind of started this thing with the short term deals. And you look at Toronto as well. John Tavares, a 4-year times $4.38 million deal. Duchesne gets a 4-year deal, similar amount. You just go around the league. Matthew Knies, a great contract win for Toronto. You get 6 years at 7.755. That's a great win for Toronto, considering in years past, guys would just hold out. I think Knies wants to be there, knows he probably could get more money, but he's like, you know what? I want to stay with this team. I don't want to play hardball. Let's just get it done.
Which is a changing in culture a little bit up there in Toronto. As you said, we've seen some players hold out before. But I want to talk about Marner for a minute because, look, he was expected to get potentially $14 million a year on a 7-year deal, if he was going to leave Toronto, obviously not being able to sign 8 years anywhere else. And the fact that his rights, it was a 1-for-1 trade, okay, it's not really Marner. It's not really a 1-for-1 because his rights that were being traded. It's not like he had term left on his deal, but he definitely took a bit of a discount. And the more interesting thing is, evidently, Toronto is still pissed off and wants to go after Vegas for tampering. And again, unconfirmed reports right now, but there's a lot of smoke around that fire. Jim, how do you willingly agree to a sign and trade where you can just say, no, we're not doing this, but, let you go to free agency and, we're losing you either way. And it's not like Nick Wise, all that. He's not a superstar. You're not being like, oh, we're getting a superstar back in return. You could have let him walk and just taking the cap space. It would have been, probably just as beneficial potentially. But how are you gonna say, oh yeah, it's tampering? If you really feel that badly about it, if you really feel tampering, then don't do the sign and trade. So Toronto is still giving us their typical Toronto chaos.
No, they are. And look, I mean, the league's still going to investigate it because they can investigate all these things, right? No, somebody's can initiate it, but you better have evidence because if it goes the other way, the same issues are going to happen. You're going to get hit with big fines, lose draft picks. So I'm interested to see if the league takes a look at the tampering, especially if a guy like Gavrikov signs with the Rangers like right away because that's where he's supposed to be going. But you
not at the new heights of salary. He's not at $9 million. He's not.
No, but say it was at $8 million, right? Like you said before, unless there's a place he really wants to go, he'll take a little bit less. That's just my point. Is the league will look at everything. I think the league's ready to jump on something and somebody to make an example out of. And I think if Marner just walked to free agency, I think there might have been some more red flags. I will say this because I know we got to move everything along. My only issue is what happened today. It should have been done a long time ago. Is because if the reports are true that Vegas was the only place that Marner wanted to go to, and they've been working on this throughout the year, then why didn't you get traded there last offseason or during the season at some point before the trade line if you really wanted to go to Vegas?
That's a great point, and I know we do have to move it along, but there is one more thing about the tampering that I want to point out. According to the league's updated memorandum on tampering, you can potentially have the contract negated. If the league seems to want to find that scapegoat to exercise its full power and, make an example of someone. That way, this whole tampering thing gets put to bed because this has been festering for a number of years now. But if they really go after Marner and Vegas, okay, yeah, Vegas gets fined $5 million, whatever it is. Then that's punitive. No one's going to care. But if Marner's contract gets null and void, I mean, Jim, that would be a heck of a thing to happen. And not to mention, and we'll talk about this later, there's a new CBA that's being voted on that's going to keep labor peace. You mean to tell me the NHLPA is going to take that line down if Marner gets his contract null and void?
Yeah, that I don't think that would be okay by the PA standard. Absolutely not. No, I don't think so. So it's going to be interesting to watch to see what happens there. Like we said before, what free agency Ivan Provorov signs his deal. Only a couple of big names really out there. Like right now, we got Brock Besser, Nikolai Ehlers are a couple of guys we're watching to see where they go. What?
That's like second tier guys.
Right, exactly.
Guys all time.
Because all the big guys are gone. There's been a couple of some trades that had happened. John Gibson finally got moved to Detroit. Again, Steve Yzerman, hopefully you get it right with the third goalie. Third time's a charm with a trade. Anaheim, you got 3 goalies. I don't know what you're doing, but that's okay because sometimes, you surprise us. Anaheim, same with Seattle. Don't know what you're doing. But, hey, it's all right because that's what the National Hockey League is about surprise. And the only thing I'll say about the Ducks is, hey, you got Roger McQueen. He's wearing 95. He's Lightning McQueen now. So, thumbs up to you.
Just the perfect way to wrap that up. And, Jim, before we hear a word from our continued non-existent sponsor, I do want to say, coming out of our non-existent sponsor break, we will be talking with the man, the myth, the legend. You want to talk hockey? He is hockey through and through, and that is the recently retired Sam Rosen, now former voice of the New York Rangers. So, Jim, when we come back, Sam Rosen's going to be joining us to talk retirement, hockey, maybe a little baseball. We'll see. And, Jim, I mean, we're doing big things here on the Blue Line Blast podcast if Sam Rosen's coming on.
Oh, it must be, right? So can't wait to have Sam Rosen on. Guys, here's the non-existent sponsor. See you on the other side.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We are now joined by our special guest of the evening. He is a man who needs no introduction, but we'll give him one anyway. He's a Hockey Hall of Famer by way of the Foster Hewitt. He's a New York State Hockey Hall of Famer. He was one of the longest tenured voices of the NHL. He's our friend, and now I guess I have to say former colleagues because he's enjoying retirement. Sam Rosen. Sam, welcome to the Blue Line Blast podcast.
I'll always be your colleague in my mind. I'll always be thinking about what's going on every single day. Thanks, Matt and Jim. It's a pleasure to be with you, and always a pleasure to talk hockey and what.
Yeah, no, look, we're glad to have you here, Sam, and on the doorstep of free agency. But before we get into Rangers and everything, I mean, technically, you're a free agent now because you are retired, as we mentioned.
My contract goes through September 14th, so I'm still a member of the MSG network and the umbrella of Madison Square Garden and the New York Rangers.
All right. Well, so how's retirement treating you, even though you're still technically under contract?
You know, Matt, it still hasn't hit me. A little bit hit me the other day when draft was completed and the message was sent out that the Rangers would have their development camp this week, Tuesday and Wednesday. I thought, that'll be great. I can go down and see the young guys that they drafted. And then I said, wait a second. They're not interested in seeing, not going to be anymore. So I think it'll really hit home in September when the players head training camp. And that's when I'll get the shakes, the withdrawals. But right now, everything's been comfortable, laying out, taking it, and watching games. Got to go to one of the Stanley Cup final games down in Florida, Game 3. That's always a lot of people that I know down there, and players and coaches from both teams. So that was exciting for me, and I just want to be on the game any way I can, and it's still something that's a great big part of me.
No, Sam, I mean, when you were down there watching the Florida Panthers in the Stanley Cup final during Game 3, and obviously everything that happened with them keeping Bennett and Marchand and Ekblad, you've seen a lot of hockey in your time. We're just getting the comparisons to the New York Islanders of the the early 80s. Is that a fair comparison to what we're seeing with this Panthers team right now?
That's a tough one, Jim. I mean, the eras are different. The way the game is played is different. The match certainly. I mean, those 70s with Montreal, 80s with Edmonton and the Islanders and Edmonton. But I think now what we've seen in recent years is if you get back Stanley Cups, as Pittsburgh did, as Tampa Bay did, as Florida has, you have to consider those teams best their era, the best of their time, however length of time you want to use, whether it's 5 years or 10 years. But about it, has been a powerhouse team for several years, and they got to the finals 3 times and won 2 in a row. Has now been finals 3 times in a row, winning the last 2. So those are teams that you have to look at as the top teams of the time. And again, we'll see. I don't know how long that will last. I think it was easier to keep those teams of the 80 together, and but now it's a lot tougher to keep a team together. Florida's done a great job. Tampa has tried to keep the together, but it hasn't been easy, and they've fallen off a little bit, haven't gone far. They've gotten into the play, and there's a quality team, but it's tough to keep those championship guys together for a long period of time.
Very well said, Sam. And, I'm going to take you off the ice for a second, because championships are not just the players, it's the whole organization, the families, everyone, and the broadcasters are family too for organizations. And, now that you're not the voice of the Rangers, Kenny Albert is stepping in. You guys obviously were a family with the Rangers for many, many years. How do you feel about Kenny being the one to, it's a little, it's a little ironic in a way if you look at it. You sort of, came after Marv, and now Kenny comes after you.
Well, it's a situation, I think, Matt, that I'm very happy for Kenny, because just as you said, Kenny has been around the Rangers his entire life. He's doing stuff on the radio for when Marv was doing the play-by-play with Sal Messina, and Kenny would do stats for him, and before he has loved hockey all his life. And this is a great thing of having him follow me in the TV. He's been part of the Rangers broadcast team for close to 30 years. So this is a natural transition. It was, I had the good fortune, the privilege, and the honor of being the Rangers broadcaster as long as I was. And to have Kenny follow me is just a great thing. It just continues the excellence of the New York Rangers in all capacities.
No, I mean, the Rangers organization, you've been a part of that for such a long time. And, I know you get the question asked all the time about favorite moments and all that, so I'm going to put that to the side. But for me anyway, I know you've answered that a lot. But, just looking back on this season, your final season, I know, forget the stuff off the ice with this team. What did you see in some of the growth of the young players on the team that were coming up with this Rangers team? That is the future.
An interesting question, Jim, because people wonder, the Rangers didn't make the playoffs. Are they going to blow it up? Are they going to fall apart? This core of this team is still good. They have got good players and good young players, up-and-coming players that you touched on. I'll get to that in a minute. But you have a new head coach, Mike Sullivan, who knows the league as well as anyone. He knows the Rangers well. He Rangers draft pick, never played for the Rangers. A very important assistant coach under John Tortorella, and a very good assistant coach. It helped him in his growth as a coach, becoming a head coach in the league, first with Boston, then again with Pittsburgh, 2 Stanley Cups. Mike Sullivan should really get the most out of this team. He knows how to put his players in position to win. I think they have a big bounce back year. The core of the veteran players still very, very strong. Artemi Panarin, you have young players coming up. I don't want to forget Mika Zibanejad. I'm a big fan. He had an off year. I think there's a lot still there that he's kept there because he can be a leader on this team and be a big number one center. Now, the young players, they're young players. You can start, people ask me about Chris Kreider. Very sad to see him go because he's an all-time Ranger. Gave heart and soul to the organization, help young players in the offseason, a solid guy day in and day out, 50-goal scorer, power goals. And it's sad to see him go. But, things can get tough. A organization, John Davidson, you always used to say you can't fall in love with your players because some you might have them as assets. And for Chris Kreider, had an off season, had some problems physically, and he get younger. They moved him on. The biggest thing monetarily is Anaheim picked up his full contract. That gives the organization, Chris Drury and the Rangers organization, maneuverability with the salary cap. And for years, I would tell people they can't Chris Kreider because they'll spend the next 5 years looking for that type player, the power forward, the guy who hits, the guy who goes into the net, the guy who can score goals. He can play on the power play. Well, they have that player. Will Cooley, in my mind, is that player, and he has all kinds of potential. He's had 2 good seasons already in the NHL. So when they're for the power, there he is, the man to go in front of the net, the man to battle along the boards, the man to score goals from in front. I think his potential unlimited. Then you go around. Alexei Lafreniere, a good young player, had an excellent year the year before. This past season, a down one, but I expect he's got loads of talent. On defense, you have Braden Schneider, ex-young defenseman. The Rangers have signed Matthew Robertson, a former second-round draft pick. They still have Adam Fox, leader on the power play. They've drafted some young defensemen. Might take a few years for them to get there, but there's certainly young people along. Last couple of draft picks, Gabriel Perreault, a young forward. They have high hopes for him. Brendan Othman, another player, hopes for him. Rangers drafted a young player in the second round this year, Malcolm Spence, the people had in the first round. So there's a lot of young talent. I don't want to forget Matt Rempe, big, strong kid who wants to be here in this league. Adam Edstrom, another big, strong kid who can skate. So there are some young, talented players. I really hope the Rangers hold to Keanu Miller. I think he's an outstanding young talent who still hasn't realized his full potential, having grown as a forward and transitioned to a defenseman, and has played. I think he's played well. A lot of people felt he had a down year last year. He's big, he's athletic, skates well. I think this team has a really good group of players where they can back and back in a hurry.
You know, Sam, watching and listening to you speak on all the players on the Rangers roster, from the veteran core to the up-and-coming young kids, it makes me, think more closely about a team that you and I both care very much about, the New York Yankees. I know you're an avid Yankee fan, and your analysis seems very similar to what people would say about the Bronx Bombers, between the veteran core, the up-and-coming young kids. You know, what's your take on the similarities between the two, and are you planning to get out to any games anytime soon?
Well, I would, the Yankees have had some success. I mean, the Yankees were in the World Series last season, and now, first half of this season, they've got the first Rangers 3 years ago. That's not a long time ago. In the conference final, they were up 2-1 against Tampa Bay in series, and Tampa Bay came back and actually Rangers ahead in that series. The Lightning came back and won that series. Situation last year against Florida, Rangers get to the conference final. They're up in that series, and the Panthers come back and win that series 4-2. So the Rangers have had some success, haven't been able to reach the pinnacle yet, but again, talking about the players that they have, there's brightness ahead in the with all those youngsters that I mentioned before, and right now they have the team that can compete. They have star players. Aaron is as good as it gets. I mean, this is a guy who's a 100-point scorer and has had 90 points a couple of times in his career. can score. Mika Zibanejad has shown he can play with the best of the centers in the NHL. There's no reason he can't back. And Trocheck up front. And, this is a team that has some solid core players, and I got the place now who can pull it all together and lead a quick comeback. But the comparison to the Yankees, very interesting. The Yankees had success. It'll be interesting if they can carry on, get back to the World Series again this year. They've certainly improved their pitch. They need more consistent hitting-wise. I've got them up on the board, up on my wall here against the Toronto Blue Jays. I'm hoping big series against them.
Well, no, yeah, Sam, that's great. I mean, like, we all see the comparisons between all the teams around here. And, real quick, I know before we wrap this up, because I know your time is precious, I just want to get your thoughts. I know he's not with the organization anymore, but you had a chance to be with the guy that's running the show up there in Montreal right now, Jeff Gordon. Just your thoughts on what he's done up there in that market with the team and the players that he's drafted and their, success last year.
Oh, Jeff Gordon's a quality general manager. He's done an excellent job. Did an excellent job in New York. Learned a lot of the things he learned from Glenn Sather, one of the all-time greats and a Hall of Famer. Really was instrumental in putting together a team that was very successful, a team that made playoffs year out, a team that got to the conference final in 2012, a team that got to the Stanley Cup final against the LA Kings in 2014. They were right there in 15, again, got knocked off in Game 7 by the Tampa Bay Lightning in the conference final. Jeff Gordon did a terrific job, and Chris Drury learned from him. Jeff Gordon has done an excellent job in Montreal. Tough place to GM, tough place to work, tough place to build a successful organization. They've had the tough situation was they lost Carey Price. Carey Price was considered to be the best goaltender in the NHL, and because injury goes down, his career comes to an end. And you look at they haven't been able to find that successor really lead the team. You've got to have quality goaltending. But Marty St. Louis has done an excellent job as a head coach, who's been always, everybody felt he was up against it, and he's overcome any adversity, any obstacles in his to be successful. That team has gotten to the playoffs, and they are a team that will be reckoned with. I mean, this is a Montreal that's bounced, but it's tough. It's tough for them. It's tough in Canada. The pressure is big, but Jeff Gordon has handled it very, very well. Drafted, they've got some good young talent. Hudson being the NHL Rookie of the Year here's a lot of people didn't know who he was, and he just came onto the scene and really became the backbone and leading the offense, the transition from defense to offense, and he was the leader in his rookie seasons. They've drafted, they've got some good talent, they've got a good captain in Suzuki. They just need to find that quality goaltender out of the mold of a Carey Price that will lead this team deep into the playoffs.
Well, Sam, we couldn't have said it any better ourselves. Again, we thank you for your time here on the Blue Line Blast podcast. We want to wish you and your family the best, especially since we know that you're going to be seeing your grandson playing some baseball this summer. And, we look forward to seeing you at the New York State Hockey Hall of Fame in a couple of weeks when your partner, Joe Micheletti, and actually Dave Maloney, too, when they both come in competing you.
Two good D-men. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Jim. It's a pleasure being with you.
Thanks, Sam.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, that was our special guest of the evening, Sam Rosen, the now former voice of the New York Rangers of 40 years, Hockey Hall of Famer, New York State Hockey Hall of Famer, just an incredible broadcaster, incredible person, a New York native through and through. Jim, we're going up and up. I don't know how he get any higher up than Sam Rosen coming on the Blue Line Blast podcast.
I don't know. I mean, maybe we get some other Hall of Famers on the Blue Line Blast podcast. I think maybe we can keep going higher and higher with that, as they like to say. But you mentioned it earlier when we were talking about contracts. You said the new CBA, labor peace. What is that about, right? We have never seen this type of labor peace in the National Hockey League before between the NHL and the NHLPA. Unbelievable what they're doing. Credit Marty Walsh, Ron Hainsey, Gary Bettman, Bill Daly. A new CBA starts next season, and another 4 more years of labor peace. Things just
4 more years. 4 more years.
4 more years. 1 more match. No, but all kidding aside, it's done. It's not like in the years past, the Bob Goodenow years or the Don Fear years. Labor peace. This is what we want. This is what we need because the sport is in such a good spot.
Yes, what we want, labor peace. I don't know that anyone, though, was clamoring for an 84-game regular season. I'm not quite sure. If we're talking from a fan standpoint, and if we're talking from a player standpoint, I don't know that anyone was wanting 84 games. Now, I see it from the league standpoint. More games, more money. Just as simple as that. But I don't know that too many people were calling for 2 additional games. And Jim, how is that? The scheduling matrix was already a mess. Okay, let's be fair. But at least it made some sense when you really dug into it. Everything seemed somewhat evenish. Okay, you played 4 games against half the teams in your division. You played 3 games against the other half the teams in your division. Every year it swaps. You play 3 games against every team in the other division that's still in your conference, with the amount of home and road swapping year to year. Then every team in the other conference between both divisions, you play them twice. 1 road, 1 home. Simple, beautiful, easy. But with the addition of only 2 more games, if they're not going to realign, if they're not going to change up the divisional alignment, how do you make that math work? You can't.
No. I mean, look, I have a saying. I want to run it by you because everybody talks about the Edmonton Oilers and their cap situation when everything's going on. Math isn't math unless it's math, and the math just don't add up with this 84-game schedule. It's tough. Look, they're going to start the season earlier. Great. You're still going to finish around the same time. That's fine. Everybody's like, oh, we got to finish earlier. Hey, if you've been paying attention to the Blue Line Blast podcast, we've told you there's an Olympic break, World Cup of Hockey. The players wanted it. So they got to take time out somewhere in February for 2 weeks every other year to do this thing. Every 2 years. Like, we're going to the Olympics next year. Stanley Cup's going to be awarded still in mid-June. We're having a World Cup in a couple of years. Stanley Cup's going to be awarded mid-June. So there's give and take. The players wanted the Olympics. Doesn't mean the schedule's going to start in September.
Well, so from my understanding, the schedule will start the end of September because the preseason will be reduced from 6 games, and some teams were playing even 7 or 8, down to 4.
Way too much.
Yeah, so it's going to be down to 4. And veterans of more than 100 games will only be allowed to play 2. And while that's great for the veteran players in terms of managing the wear and tear, Jim, how are you going to get ready for the season playing only 2 preseason games?
You can't. You see it in the NFL.
The first few games of the season were already sluggish, plodding, methodic, sloppy games as it was. When you were playing 6 preseason games with veterans suiting up for about half to 3/4 of them.
Yeah.
Now veterans are only going to play a maximum of 2, with probably most of them only playing 1.
I don't know, man. I know everybody's in shape. Everybody's in shape. But
that
still,
first 3 weeks is going to be real brutal and rough.
No, I agree. And look, everybody's in shape. Everybody comes into training camp, whatever. You see it in the NFL. the first quarter of the season is sloppy football. It's the preseason because nobody plays together. It's gonna be similar in the NHL, but hey, we're getting an 84-game regular season, more money. We know we're getting more teams eventually down the line. Hey, expansion. Hey, everybody. Woo. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, great. Yeah, who's putting up $2 billion?
Yeah, exactly. I'm not seeing any of it. So, I mean, whatever. I hope I see it, but I don't know. Anyway.
Hey, you never know. So maybe by that time when Atlanta and Houston come in, if they are indeed the next two teams, Blue Line Blast, hey, guys out there, you rich billionaires out there, Blue Line Blast podcast is willing to come and be the podcast of your team. We'll be the podcast of Atlanta 3 or of Houston 1, whatever you want to call them.
Exactly.
Throw some of that $2 billion expansion fee our way.
Exactly. But besides the 84-game regular season, they're closing a loophole with LTIR. So there's a playoff salary. About time. Playoff salary cap. All right. We have also, I saw no dress code, lenient on the dress code. We don't have to do that anymore. So that's huge. But the other big thing I saw to highlight all this, the paper transactions with the AHL no longer going to be there as well. So remember when teams tried to use we're going to send a guy down to balance our cap out, but we can't do it. He's not really going down, but he's going down. That's going to stop too.
Now, I'm surprised, seeing as you are a beer league hockey player, I'm surprised you didn't bring up the E-Bud situation, the emergency backup goalie, now being essentially a pro. We're no longer going to have the Dave Aries type of guy coming out, the accountant, the Zamboni driver coming into a game. Every team's going to have a designated third emergency backup goalie. So that's going to take away a little bit of the fun. And I may be old school on this. I might sound very old school on this. If you or anyone out there wants to rip me, my Twitter handle is at Matthew Blittner, and you can come fire away. I will fire right back. This is my blast from the blue line right here, right now for this week. Jim, the whole thing with hockey that made it so seem like the stately attire, the stately manner of hockey was the dress code, was everyone arriving in suits. I know sometimes, special events, they had fun with it. Like when they play a stadium series or the Winter Classic and it's 0 degrees and you see players coming in bathing suits.
That was great. That was great.
Hockey players are not afraid of the cold. Okay, that's fine. But Jim, the suit and tie, now I know there are some players who, would be a little bit more fashionable, like the PK Subban or an Austin Matthews. They would come,
Marchand.
or who had their way about it. But now, and players are not going to show up in basketball shorts and a tank top. We know that. But it was a little bit of that rich hockey history, the stately thing that connected hockey. As much as I'm a huge baseball guy, right? I always loved that the manager in baseball is in uniform, just like the players, okay? Really makes it feel like he's part of the team, even though he's obviously their boss. But there's something in hockey about, the coach being in a suit. The players obviously are not playing in suits, but they're in their suits, going to the arena and coming back from the arena. It's just something about the regalness of hockey. And now that they're doing away with it, and again, I understand the players want to be more comfortable, but how much more comfortable are they really going to be? Again, they're not showing up in basketball shorts, so they're not really going to be all that much more comfortable. I just think they should have kept the dress. Maybe make each team have their own individual, unique dress code. Maybe the Toronto Maple Leafs hire a fashion person to design, the next line of Toronto Maple Leafs, suits, or next line of Toronto Maple Leafs wear, and all the Maple Leafs wear that. All the New Jersey Devils have to wear this. That could have been something fun. But to just do away with it, it just feels like a bit of a throwaway thing by the league.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that my same way. I always loved when I was playing, when you play high school or you played in club hockey or, regular college hockey or whatever, showed up in a suit. That's how you looked. You leave in a suit. That's the way it's supposed to be. And I like that. That's how I feel about it. I 100% agree. Look, we'll see. Some players may, bend it a little bit. Let's see how far they take it. I think most guys are traditionalists. The guys that have been in the league the longest probably won't give up the suit and tie because you look good, you look distinguished, you look like a hockey player. So I don't think that's going to happen. My days of showing up like that are long gone. Hoodie and shorts for me heading into the rink. That's my look on the beer league days or the roller days when we play. Speaking of roller, shout out Pat Maroon doing his thing in Narch. Guy never stops playing. I love it. Shout out to him. But I agree with you on that. My issue, the only thing I have right now from the blast from the blue line, we talked about it. I'm just going to hammer it home. I still think 82 games is fine. The schedule is the way it is. I'm not a fan of 84 games. I don't like the fact that we're reducing preseason. If we're going to do this, let's find a way to take out some of the breaks, and then we can get more games played so we can get the cup finished before mid-June. That's what we need.
I agree with you 1,000,000% on that. Let's get the cup done. I will say this, though. 84 games, they have done that twice before, back in the early 90s. But that was with fewer teams, so the math worked out better. The math was getting math there to rip off your
hey, it's okay.
But there is one thing, actually, that it just crossed my mind that is in the memorandum of understanding for the new CBA that I can't believe it took us until this point in the show to get to. Jim, they're finally mandating net guards for all new players starting in the thing. So within, let's call it, 10 years from now, just to be safe. It'll probably be less than that, but just to be safe, every player in the league will be finally wearing a net guard. And hallelujah to that.
It's claps all around for everybody. Hey, it's about time. Throw in the net guards, new players. They're wearing it in AHL anyway. USA Hockey mandates it for most of the players anyway. You see it at the World Juniors, World Championships. Guys got to wear net guards. I think this was a big push. We know Tom Fitzgerald, New Jersey Devils, big push for his players to be wearing net guards. Got to keep the safety of the players in mind. Also, the health insurance for players after, that's a huge thing for them as well. So a lot of benefits in the new CBA for not only the owners, but the players as well. Kudos to the National Hockey League and the Players Association for getting this done and having it done by the draft. Great job on both ends.
Yeah, great job. Now, can we get a new CBA for the media covering as well so we can, maybe get some, better working conditions, some better perks and stuff? Maybe some better snacks or media meals, something like that. The little things that make us happy in life.
Little things in life, they always work. And, look, we'll say this. I think the NHL is doing a great job. I know a lot of people want to take shots at what they do. Again, my parting shot on this is
decentralized draft.
Exactly. This is my parting shot. If you guys want to complain about the decentralized draft, talk to the NHL GMs who voted 26-6 to have it. The league constantly said, it's not us. It was the GMs. They put it on the GMs. We can clearly see it didn't work, but give Steve Mayer and his staff great job for doing what they could do. Some things didn't work, like most people figured. However, NHL, it's an NHL event. It should be run by the NHL. The GM should have no say in what goes on at NHL events. And we need the centralized draft back.
1,000%. We need the centralized draft back. And look, everyone always says the NFL is the biggest and most popular sport, at least in North America. And it is, they do over $17 billion, so no other league is close to that. And they do a decentralized draft, and it works out tremendously. So I can see on the one hand, leagues wanting to copy them because we all know that sports are copycats. Leagues are copycats. So if the number one is doing it this way, everyone else is going to want to do it that way. So from that standpoint, I can see it. And I know, the NHL GMs were also saying, oh, well, it's too expensive to fly out our staff. It's too expensive to put them up in hotels. There's not enough time before free agency, yada, yada, yada. But, okay, you want to try to copy the NHL has always been the one league to never copy the NFL or the other leagues and what works. They've always marched to the beat of their own drum, both to their benefit and to their detriment in certain things. Why now? Why is this the time to copy stuff? Don't start copying them now. Okay, it's like, You know the old saying, if you can't beat them, join them. You're not beating the NFL. You don't need to join them. Okay, just stick to what works for you.
Exactly. And I like that. Stick to what works. The NHL is a big event. The centralized draft. Everybody loves going to it. Everybody loves mingling. It's a big event for the NHL. Go back. It's going back. We all know it's going back. It's just a matter of where. Who knows? Vegas, Montreal. Who knows? But if it's Vegas, it's going to be another party like it always is. If it's Montreal, even bigger party in my book. But, guys.
Oh, we're going back to Ziggy's Pub. Right there. We're going back to Ziggy's Pub if it's back in Montreal.
Always at Ziggy's Pub, baby. Always. Shout out. But, guys, it's been another edition of Blue Line Blast Podcast. Thank you to Sam Rosen coming on here. Thank you to everybody who's been following on the great comments on the videos. Again, previous episodes are linked above and down below. Check it out. Jim Biringer, Matthew Blittner. Please subscribe, like, comment. Check us out. Blue Line Blast Podcast. We'll be back in a couple of weeks. Take care and enjoy.